Okay, this is Andrew. I'm back. We're going to finish discussing the Classful IP address ranges. And again, remember, Classful IP addressing is not used anymore. It was used in the old days, and now we use classless IP addressing. We're going to look here at exactly what the difference is, and hopefully after this presentation, you'll understand exactly why it's not used anymore. Okay. So you can see here that our range for the Class A is 0 to 127. And actually, the 0 network and the 127 network are reserved, so we're able to use 1 through 126 for a network. Now remember, each one of these quadrants here are 8 bits. So an IP address is made up of 4 blocks of 8 bits, which is a total of 32 bits. Now, in a Class A, the first quadrant is used for the networks. So that's the number of networks you can use is based on this quadrant. The remaining 3 quadrants are the number of host bits you have that you can use for hosts like PCs, etc., whatever requires an IP address. Okay, now the number of actual IP addresses that you could make out of this actual network, the 1000, is 2 to the 24 minus 2. And we'll take a look at that later, but you can see that a Class A address just gives you a whole lot of hosts, but at the same time, there's just not many Class A networks available. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look a little deeper into the Class A. So for example, if we look at the 24 network, that's one out of the 1 to 126. We picked one of them, which is 24. So 24000. The lowest number is the network address, okay? And the highest number is the broadcast address, 24.255.255.255. So neither one of these can be used as an IP address for a PC. But anything in between those can be used for an IP address. For example, 24.168.25, that could be an IP address for a computer. 24.001, 24.008, any number in between this 24000 and the 24255.255.255 can be used for an IP address on the 24.0.0.0 network. Okay, so for example, the first one would be 24.001. The second one would be 24.002, and then 24.003. And then this fourth quadrant would count up to 255, and then we would start here. 1. So these are all possible IP addresses. So 1, and then this guy is going to count up to 255 again. Then he goes to 2. Then we do it again. And then he goes to 255, and then we come up to 1. Then that whole process starts over until you get to 255, 255. And if you look at that, you would see that it's 2 to the 24 minus 2. That's how many hosts IP addresses you could get in that range, which again is a whole lot, and we'll work on that later. So the limitation with the Classful A is, for example, if I have a medium-sized company with 2,000 employees, and they each need a computer and an IP address and maybe a few more for stuff, so I need 3,000 IP addresses. Well, I had to buy this Class A, and I have just a huge number of IP addresses. It's just huge. So, it's not only did I have to pay for more than I need, it's wasted. Other people can't buy it. I've hogged up this whole IP network just for my business, which doesn't even need it. So, another option you can do is buy a Class B network. Now, the first two quadrants here are for the networks, and the last 2 quadrants are for the host. That's 16 bits for the network, 16 bits for the host in this Class B network range. Okay, so let's just choose, if you go back to the table, let's just choose one of the networks, 134.15, that's within the range. Okay, so the 00 is again starting, it's the network address. This is the lowest number. This is the 134.15 network, and now we're trying to determine which IP addresses are within that range on the 134.15 network. So 00 is the lowest one, that's the network address, and 255.255 is the highest one, that's the broadcast address. So again, the same thing happens. This guy counts up from 1 to 254, so we can have 134.15, 1, or 0, 1, and we can have 134.15, 0, 2, all the way up to 254. Then this 255 the first time, and then this one counts up to 1 all the way to 255, and then the second time this stops at 254 because this one is 255. If you don't totally get all that right now, it's not too important, but just understand that, this is the network part, this is the host part, this is the network address of this IP range, and this is the broadcast address. The lowest one is the network, the highest one is the broadcast. Everything in between is can be used as an IP address for a host. And that's why they call it the host part, 16 bits. Great. Okay, so you can see the Class A had very few networks, but a whole lot of hosts, and Class B kind of half and halved it. So you can imagine that what Class C is going to do is Class C is going to give you a whole lot of network ports, which is 24 bits, which is 3 quadrants are reserved for the network part, and only 8 bits are reserved for the host part. So you can see here, if we just pick one of the Class C networks, like 204.1.1, and the lowest one, 0, is the network address, and the highest one, 255, is the broadcast address. Everything within those can be used for an IP address, which gives us the range of 1 to 254. Okay, so this one is a little easier to see. If you do 2 to the 8 minus 2, that'll show you how many IP addresses you have. Okay, so here you can see that a Class C network gives you a lot less hosts, but there's way more Class C networks available to purchase. Okay, so you can see here the numbers. You can go ahead, I'm not going to read all of these numbers off to you, but you can see the Class A host part is, whatever that actually says, is 16 millions. It's a lot, okay? And then, so you can read that table and you can see, but the problem here is that you can only buy these IP address ranges, or these networks, in these blocks, A, B, C, or blocks, when it's classful. And not only will you not be able to get exactly what you need, there's a lot of IP addresses that go to waste. So what they came up with was classless IP addressing, and that's what we're going to be talking about in the future. Okay. Here I kind of discussed the limitations with the classful is, you're stuck in purchasing the blocks. If your company's too small, then you may end up buying bigger blocks than you need, and if your company's too big, then you have to buy a combination of smaller blocks to try to fit what you have. So what we're going to look at in subnetting is subnetting lets you divide that whole range up into the networks and the IP address ranges that you need, and we're going to talk about that in the future. Thank you very much.